Hi, welcome to the Gentle Art Podcast with Dunn. Today we have the privilege of sitting with PJ Acuna, a jiu-jitsu practitioner and a longtime martial artist. PJ, welcome. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me, Shion. This is a huge pleasure, huge honor.
When we went to Japan, I got a chance to visit that dojo, and that was amazing. That was a really, really cool experience to be in the same, like Mr. Funokoshi taught there, and Mr. Funokoshi's son taught there, and to be inside those walls, you know, it was profound for me. It was meaningful.
Did they accept you as an American, or is there like sort of like a superior feeling that they have since they're from Japan, training in those walls?
It was really interesting because there were some senior people there. There was no class going on, but there was senior people training on the floor. And, you know, I had to get their permission to put on a uniform to take pictures in the dojo. And they didn't want to be in those pictures. They were very specific about it. And I think in that way, they had, you know, I don't think that they're suspicious of Americans, but for sure, they're watching etiquette and protocol. And if etiquette and protocol are off, then they have my experience and what I've gathered through listening and talking to people who have lived there, is that they don't have anything to do with you. Like etiquette and protocol are very high up on the list. And if you're socially awkward and you socially don't follow the kind of normatives, the social, the kind of the way to be,
right,
they don't welcome you in. So they didn't know me. Even though I was there with one of their senpais who came to America, Mr. Miyazaki's junior. I guess like Billy started after you, right?
No, Billy was there right before me.
Yeah. Who is someone in like that you consider good that started after you?
Adam Cancel.
Adam Cancel. It would be like you going there with Adam Cancel, like, or no, it would be like me going there with Adam Cancel. Like he's a senior student, but he's your junior,
right?
And he would say, "Oh, you know, PJ is my teacher." Blah blah blah. So, even though I was there with higher ups, it was still at arm's length. Which is very Japanese, which I actually appreciate. You know, there is some merit to that.
It's like you have to meet the standard, and it's reasonable.
You do. You as a younger man, I didn't understand it, but certainly as a mature man that's been in the martial arts for a long time, I can appreciate it. It's like you got to prove yourself, kind of.
But it's interesting because it's not like proving yourself just as like a skilled practitioner, even though that's important. But that's so like superficial. There's so much more to that. You know, you have to be a good, not just person, but you have to be understanding of the people that you're going to be with, the people you're going to be training with, the teacher. Even if the teacher messes up, it is what it is. He's a human being, and you just have to respect his role in that encounter.
Absolutely. You know, it makes me think of this time, like when I started, well, I met Mr. Vizio when I was 18 years old. And my first encounter with him was at Mr. Miyazaki's dojo. And I came in early and he's like, "What are you doing here?" Like he was really tough, right? And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is Mr. Vizio." Like everybody told me he's off his chain. Like And I was like, sir, I'm here for class. He's like, you're too early. Get out of here. And I was like, he's like, go have some pizza. You look like a fat pizza boy. Go have some pizza. And I was like, oh, man. And he was like in retrospect, he was setting the stage for how I was going to be. Like if I was going to crumble, he had no time for me. But if I was going to keep coming and showing my grit and my, my pluck and all that stuff, then there would be space. And so at a certain point when I started competing, like I wanted to train with him. He's one of the pioneers in the martial arts in this country and one of the best that ever did martial arts, still is. And I had to ask him for a year. For a year, it was no, get out of here, beat it. You suck, get out of here. I'm not training with you. Like, and then at the year mark, he said, okay. And then beat the piss out of me. Like it started over again. His daughter was on the podcast and she had said that when he was 6 years old, he stayed in front of his teacher's house for an entire year, every day asking, a 6-year-old. And it was no, 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 no. And then the next year it was go get tea. And then the next year it was stay in a stance. He stayed in horse stance for a year. And then the next, it was one punch, one kick. And he came up in this crazy environment when he was a kid. Something like movies are made of.
Yeah, no, it sounds like surreal. And it's interesting that, he's your teacher and you're my teacher and our teacher for all of those that train with us. And although it might not be as extreme as hold horse stance for a year, you are very demanding, and it's been very, very good for me. When I walked into the dojo at Avenue U, I was probably 18 years old. And I think that experience of having someone who's doesn't know you but cares enough about you to tell you, like, this is the way you're supposed to stand, you have to turn around to fix your uniform, those things are so important, and it's helped me tremendously in my own relationships and in my life now.
Who brought you to the dojo?
So I stepped foot into the Bay Parkway dojo in 2015 for a month. I did kickboxing. That's where I met Billy. It was a little tough to continue.
The Bay Parkway dojo is right around the corner from your house, right?
Literally right across the street.
Right.
And it always caught my interest. Everyone the door would be open and the energy was so high.
Yeah.
People, whether it was gi jiu-jitsu or kickboxing, whatever was going on, it was just loud and it just seemed so interesting. So that was when I first stepped in, about 2015. I met Brandon Seidman, Professor Seidman, in high school, in sophomore year of high school. This is before the dojo experience had come to me.
Right.
And I think that was during the time where he had his little hiatus.
Yeah.
Right? Sometime thereafter.
Didn't he work at Wendy's?
Yes, he was working
Wendy's with Ali.
Yeah, he was working at Wendy's with Ali.
Yeah.
And I think Ali may have been training around that time too at the Bay Parkway location. So some time passes. Brandon and I played basketball. We started to grow a close relationship with one another. And we're about juniors or seniors in high school. And Brandon had found his way back into the dojo. And he was telling me about, like, hey, I'm training jiu-jitsu. It's awesome. And I remember he showed me the garrote, right? The choke. Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, if someone was to do this to me.
For those of you who don't know what the garrote is, it's a closed off strangle where you're using one arm and your chin.
Just one arm and just your chin. And it could happen to anybody, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, if someone was to do this to me, I would not know what to do. I'd be helpless. I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So Brandon and I, he always invited me to come to the school. And we were going to Planet Fitness, working out, and he showed me the Agoshi. He was like, I bet I could lift you, on my hips. And I was like, there's no way, bro. I was like, there's no way. And he's like, I'm telling you, I could lift you. So with one arm, goes right around my hip, grabs my other arm, slips his hips in front of mine, goes underneath me and lifts me off my feet. I almost faceplant, right? I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, this is crazy. So from that point on, I was like, all right, Brandon, I think I'm gonna have to check this stuff out.
Was his because he was a white belt probably or blue belt at that time, right?
Yeah.
So was his introductory level technique enough to inspire you?
100%. No, 100%. If he didn't show me those two techniques, I'm sure at some point I would have found my way in the school.
Right.
But actually having that experience was like, oh my goodness, I have to know how to do this.
Yeah.
And being 17, 18 years old, I really didn't know much about self-defense in general. So I felt like, wow, this is going to be very important for me. The world is huge. I want to have the confidence to be able to handle myself physically in the street, right? Just in a regular day-to-day basis. So I come to the Avenue U School on a Monday night class.
I think I remember you sitting at right where the door is and watching.
Yep.
I think I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I walked in and it was the karate class going on.
Oh, really? Who was I teaching?
And you were teaching. And at the time, I had never seen or met like a real martial arts practitioner. Definitely nobody with cauliflower ears and this towering man who was just so poised during teaching the class. I was like, I walked in and I was like, oh my goodness, this is a human being that I've never seen before. You, right?
Yeah. People think I'm like Shrek, like I live under a bridge.
Yeah, like Bigfoot.
Like a troll.
Yeah. I was like, if there's someone that I want to learn martial arts from, it's going to be this guy, right? So the karate class was going on. You're screaming, itch, knee, and everyone's kicking and punching. There are black belts on the mat, yellow belts, white belts. I was like, all right, this is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The jiu-jitsu class comes onto the mat. Karate class is exiting, and everyone's saying hello to me. They're greeting me as if I've been there my whole life. Everyone's like, hey, how's it going? Nice to meet you, whatever. And I was like, this is familiar.
Right.
This is familiar. And I'm sitting there watching the jiu-jitsu class. And at the end of the class, you stepped off the mat and you asked me how'd it go. And I said, you have me sold. And you were like, I'm not selling anything, buddy. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like this is, there's so much more to this than just paying for tuition.
That's right.
And coming here, learning a couple of techniques.
That's right.
And that was like the first, that was like the catalyst to what turned out. Now it's going to be 7. This year's going to make 8 years of training. That was the catalyst of my experience at the dojo. Shortly thereafter, I rekindled my connection with the Bay Parkway location, started training there.
Yeah. And
from there on, I found my way over to Avenue U.
How much did Brandon have to do with that process there? Like was he telling you more, or once you experienced watching, it had a grip? Because I know, I remember my brother taking me to the dojo. Like, he was a brown belt, and I remember watching those guys. It was a small dojo. It was in the back of a laboratory. There was 2 black belts, a brown belt, a green belt, or 2 brown belts, my brother and another guy, and a green belt and a white belt. That was all. They were all scientists, and I remember sitting there watching and going, this is what I'm going to do. I remember making that decision to be a black belt then, as a 12-year-old. So was it like that for you, or did it take some more?
It definitely took. So Brandon played a large role in me staying at the dojo and having enough confidence after those rough days where a month passes or 2 months pass, and you feel like you're getting a grip of certain things, and some things are working, other things aren't technically, right? Like in the training itself. And Brandon always made sure that I realized, this is just how that is the training.
Right.
You're going to have times where you feel like everything is working for you, where you have a good grip on your skills, but there are also going to be times where you'll be humbled and you'll be checked. And he put that into context for me in words that really...
At 18 and 19, right?
Yeah, at 18. Yeah. He may have just received his blue belt, and he shared all that wisdom with me. It was
a brilliant guy.
Amazing, right?
Yeah.
It was a short conversation from the dojo to the end train, And he would always, we would talk about how class went, what techniques we did, what we hit on this person, that person.
Right.
And anytime I was down, he always had a way to pick me back up. And it kept me there.
Yeah.
It really did, especially in those beginning days.
What's one of the things that he shared with you to pick you back up, other than this is the training? Did he like...
Yeah, so I'll give you a great example, and he probably remembers this like it was yesterday. We were walking to the end train. We stopped at 7-Eleven first to grab some seltzers, right?
Uh-huh.
And
the after jujitsu elixir.
Yeah, exactly. This is before high noons. This was Schweppes.
Yeah,
this was Schweppes. So I told him, I was like, Brandon, I think I might want to find one of those like jujitsu athletes who has a similar body shape to me. And maybe I could learn their game so that I could do that in the dojo.
Right.
And he was like
on the internet, or
yeah, like on the internet, right?
Right.
So he was like he laughed at me, and he was like, bro, he was like, you'll only be a crappier version of someone else.
Wow.
And we're like super, super young, right? To have these thoughts, but just to think a lot of that was probably in him already, but what really brought all of that to fruition, and he may agree, I don't want to speak for him, but as a friend...
I'm going to ask him when he's going to be on the show next. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be incredible.
Yeah.
But I think the dojo probably helped him like put that stuff from in here out there for all of us to kind of see and share with him. And those words, we had countless conversations. That's just one.
Right.
But that stuck with me so much, because growing up, like, you're playing basketball, you're like, okay, I want to be like Michael Jordan.
Right.
So you start doing what Jordan does, right?
Right.
And that's the only context I had for it. I didn't know like how important it would be to be PJ Acuna, the jiu-jitsu black belt. I didn't know that was a possible thing,
Right. Beautiful. So at that point, did you start to instead of being the crappier version of someone else, did you start thinking about being the best version of you?
Absolutely. I think conversations like that from the very beginning helped me work on all that stuff deliberately. And to this day, I mean, I'm realizing now that it's really a never-ending job.
That's what's
it really
beautiful about it.
Yeah, it's just like those beginning days at the dojo. Brandon was right. Not much has changed. Some days everything that you're doing is working, and some days they're not.
Buddy, on Thursday, everything you were doing with me was working. I was like, damn, he's ahead of me every place I go. Let me ask you something. If you were talking to a beginner student and they're expressing like their frustration, or like I'm not getting it, or like the PJ Acuna now, what would you see to that person? What's some wisdom that you could share for someone that's kind of beginning, maybe not even beginning, maybe just feeling some measure of frustration? And what would you share with them?
One of the principles that we practice that you share with us for sure are of the many. It's that you have to always have that beginner mindset. And what that means to me is you have to be open to failures, and you can't let those things keep you down. You can't be defeated. The only time you're defeated is when you allow that stuff to hinder your confidence and all your progress. There is a small amount of time where it's okay to be a little upset when you're not seeing the progress you want. But how long are we supposed to stay in that bubble? So to a beginner student or anyone that's really struggling in their practice, I would say take a second to analyze where you're at and realize that you could use that to push you forward to the next thing. And when another challenge comes up in a month from now, 3 months from now, a year from now, that experience will serve you throughout.
Yeah. I keep trying to say that, like, at where I am at now, right? Like, I'm celebrating my 30th year in jiu-jitsu. And
let's go, Shion.
Thank you. Like, I keep trying to share with the students that, like, at this point, you welcome those feelings of frustration because you know what's behind them is the next step forward. It's very hard to see when you're just new to the experience and you don't have a context. Like most people, I think, are trained in the social context that if they're feeling frustrated about something or if they're feeling like uneasy or they bail. Like you don't confront it. You go the other way. And that's the opposite of what we're supposed to do in a martial arts context. And if you ask me, it's the opposite of what we're supposed to do in our lives. We're not supposed to run from the challenges. We're supposed to like process them and, you fall, you get it back up and that whole, but though when those feelings arise now and they're a little bit further and further away and further and far between, but when they come up now, like I go, oh, right. Like, let me go into that problem because I know when I emerge on the other side, I'm going to be better.
Right.
So that's really cool, man. That's very good. Well done.
It makes me think about, so after all those kind of like that adolescent phase in my training, right? After I was able to realize that there were going to be moments like that in the training and respect those moments and appreciate them, bringing that outside into my personal relationships, bringing that into, at the time, my schoolwork, all areas of my life, it really helped me stay in the fight.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that maybe I could have figured it out a little bit, but the dojo really...
It puts it under the microscope,
exactly,
for sure.
It brings it all out into the real world.
There's something about the relatedness physically to other males and or females in the training that makes it so evident, and puts it like really under the microscope.
It's way different than... I played baseball growing up, right? And I love baseball and basketball too, but baseball during the younger years. And
were you good at it?
I was all right. I wasn't a star.
Right.
Maybe that's why I didn't stick with it.
Right.
But I was all right. I had fun. Yeah, I could play.
Yeah. You were playing?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You weren't the kid that was on the bench, right?
Yeah, no. I was playing. I was either shortstop or left field. Those were my two spots, right? And I had a blast playing. But I don't remember there ever being a moment where I received these lessons that I'm learning at the dojo over there.
Yeah, I have this thought, I'll put it out there. Like, I heard once, like, little league sports don't build strong character. They weed out the weak ones. And it's one of the reasons why I just won't concede that martial arts is a sport. Because it's not. It's just not. No matter what Professor Danaher says, it's just not. And, or anybody else in the jiu-jitsu world. Like, they can make it a sport all they want, but the value is exactly that. Like, that's the shift, Competition doesn't build strong character typically.
Right.
It weeds out the weak ones. And there's a lot of, like, if you ask me, bullshit dialogue about learning how to lose and all that stuff. Life is filled with that. You don't need to learn how to do that. Like, you need to know how to manage it and how to overcome it in a very progressive way.
Right. I think, hearing that now, I think the benefit of having a good teacher, right? A teacher who's actively working on all of these things, is that the students get to benefit from that work that they're doing and sharing, right? I'm grateful that, I know you pretty well over these last couple of years, right? And you work on these things every day.
I do.
Every day. And, not that there
I'm
was
certainly
anything...
not perfect at it. You've been there when I've made those mistakes.
Right.
I've made them with you.
Right. And and vice versa. It absolutely happens. And that's kind of what built the relationship. And if there was a level of that in these little league sports, let's say, or in any other like fitness realm, I think one could receive these lessons.
Yeah.
But some of the typically men that are in charge of coaching these young folks, or they're not working on these things. And maybe it might be worth looking into for them, you know?
It's a nice point, PJ. It's a very nice point. You know, during the our pre-show talk, I had said that recently I've been educating the class on the art of being an uke. And for those of you who don't know what the term uke means, it's the receiver. In Japanese, the word for block is uke. It's not actually a block, it's receiving the technique. And I've been saying that, like, it's the most profound position in the dojo when you're helping receive someone's technique and improving them. And you know, I shun, or I shy away from the term master. Rather, I like the idea of mastery. Like, we're in the pursuit of mastery rather than being a master. We don't arrive at that. And so I had said to you, like, you've mastered it. And then I backed out of it. And I said, you're certainly working on it, and you're at a high level of being a great uke. I seek you out to demonstrate the techniques. And like, I want to just open up the conversation about your thoughts around being an uke, being someone who receives the technique from the other person, and the importance of that and what it means to you. And
so it's interesting that, like, uke means like receiver or receiving, because you definitely have to, there's a level of give in there. Like, I'm a believer that no matter how complex, let's say, a technique might look at face value, if you have a good partner, a good uke, the tori, the person who's doing the technique, is going to get some points from it, and they're going to succeed with repetitions. So a large part of it is understanding that your role and your job as uke is to let your partner succeed. And you say that a whole lot, and it really is that really is the dynamic there. The goal isn't to, like, if the technique is the armbar, the goal isn't to just keep your bicep flexed and make it impossible for your partner to tap. Like, like let this person work and succeed, and 9 times out of 10, when it's your turn to go, they'll respond to that exactly the way you did.
That's right.
It's almost like you have to be a little sensitive to what your individual partner needs. Some people are more experienced, and they might need a little more bite, right? They might need a little more of like an al dente uke, right? Right?
Brilliant.
Yeah. But others, they might need something that's a little more
overcooked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or undercooked. Yeah,
undercooked.
Right? Whatever it is. Right. It doesn't matter. Like, every person that you're training with is different, and you'll learn through physical touch. You'll learn through speaking with them, training with them. You'll learn what they need when it comes to that.
There's a lot to unpack here. First of all, like, I love it, man, and I think it's so brilliant. First of all, like, I think that a lot of people, at least as they're coming into the entry point or in other schools, like, they don't even know the term uke, and really they call it drilling, and they're just waiting for their turn to drill, so they kind of turn off to the sensitivities of it. The other thing that, like, I really love is that you said you have to be sensitive. It's a moment by moment process, and it's reciprocal in a martial arts environment. Like, you're giving it, therefore you're going to receive it. And that's how real growth happens with another person. It's not like, I try to say this all the time in class, like, just because your partner's doing something well doesn't mean you suck. Like, they're doing something well, support that. Support that. And I think you're brilliant at that, man.
Oh, thank you. And I've learned a whole lot of certain techniques that I see, work for me now. Being an uke, you get to, if you're an uke who is sensitive, you'll feel what the technique is supposed to feel like. And I learn a lot of it when we're training together, or when I'm uke for you, like, this is what the technique should feel like. This is what it should look like. It's not like a one size fits all thing, but the right mechanics are here. And when you're receptive to that as an uke, and you're not worried about, I just got to get my turn in, like, you become better. And when it's your turn to go, you make the adjustments and you benefit from the exchange as well. It really is like, it's a give and a take.
Yep.
And it works when you have a good uke, when you have a good uke, or when you have a good training partner, it works. Your training shoots, right?
Yeah.
It shoots beyond the stars.
Yeah. You know, I want to just add some comment here. Like, the reason I say it's the most profound is that actually, like, the teacher can't teach in the context of jujitsu without an uke. And so everybody in the classroom is learning through your mastery, your art, your sensitivity, your being in the right place at the right time, in the right moment, and with the right amount of resistance, all of it. And every single person in the classroom that day is benefiting from your being the uke. And I think that that's like, you know, karmatically, or, you know, like, that's blessing upon blessing upon blessing. That stacks up on you, man.
That's interesting, actually. Yeah. That's the first time that I seen it, well, heard it from that perspective.
Yeah. It's really an important role.
Thank you for listening to the Gentle Art Podcast. Please share, rate, and review. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please contact us at the GentleArtPodcast@gmail.com, or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or thegentleartpodcast.com.